7th grade math test 2 study guide number 1. So it says, if you can eat 42 hot dogs in 6 minutes, how many can you eat in 2 minutes? Well, number 1 says 42 hot dogs in 6 minutes. Remember, we always want to keep time second, right, or underneath, unless they tell us otherwise. So time decides stuff, so we put the time out here, goes in and out. 42 goes in, the time goes out. That means 6 hot dogs per minute is the unit rate. If it's 6 per minute times 2, it's 14 hot dogs. So number 1, the answer would be 14 hot dogs. Problem number 2, car traveled 246 miles on 12 gallons of gas, means over 12 gallons of gas. What is the miles per gallon? So if we do miles per gallon, okay, we go in and out, divide like this. Oops, 24, sorry, I should write legibly here. Drop down to 6, and 20 doesn't go into 6, so we can add a decimal there and start adding zeros now. 20 does go into 65 times, so it's 20.5 miles per gallon, because miles are first and gallons are second. Okay, 20.5 miles per gallon. Alright, number 3. A jiu-jitsu class has 20 boys and 8 girls. What is the ratio of girls to boys? For girls to boys, you got to put girls first, so it's 8 to 20. However, like all fractions, you have to reduce. So if I did my factor like this, 8 over 20, it's the same way to write that, right? And we know that 8 is 2, 2, 2. We memorized that in class. 20 is 4, right? 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 5, that's 20. Cross out my 1s. I know that's a 2 to 5 ratio. So it can be 2 to 5, or it can be written like this, 2 to 5, or 2/5, or 2 over 5, or 2 per 5. These are all the same thing. You have to know all of them, because you don't know which way it's going to be written on the test. Number 4. Excuse me. Yeah, number 4. It's another jiu-jitsu problem. Same information, 20 boys to 8 girls, but this time they ask us, what is the ratio of boys to girls? This time it's boys to girls. So this time you got to put the boys first. So now it's 8 to 20. We already reduced it, which means, well, let me see. I feel like I just said something wrong. Boys to girls. Yeah, we got to put the boys first. I'm sorry about that. Boys was 20. Girls was 8. I'm trying to go a little too fast here. So boys is first. So we already reduced that, like I said earlier, so I know it's 5 to 2 this time, or 5 to 2, or you can write it those other ways also, right? 5 to 2. Don't forget to reduce that ratio. Number 5. The table below has ratios that are all equivalent. So we see this table here. If they're all equivalent, just pick any pair that you want. So I have 5 grams of peanuts to 35 grams of raisins, right? And they say, what's the ratio? How many grams of peanuts are there for each gram of raisins? So if they say for each gram of raisins, that means that the peanuts and raisins, that means that the raisins have to go on the bottom. Again, let me repeat that. If the problem says, how many grams of peanuts are there for each gram of raisins, each gram of raisins, each means over. Okay, so that means this time raisins goes on the bottom. So I take those numbers and I put raisins on the bottom. Just like I did here, I do my factor trees and cross out my 1, and I get 1 to 7. There's a 1 to 7 ratio. In other words, there's 1/7 gram of peanuts for every gram of raisins. Okay, so when we divide this, okay, sometimes they want us to do a decimal going in and out, right? Or in this case, if you didn't want to reduce first, you can divide like this. Okay, but the answer is going to be left as a fraction, which is easier for you. So all we do is, how do we divide those? We just reduce the fraction. That's another way you can get the 1/7 gram of peanuts per each gram of raisins. Number 6 is very similar. But number 6 asks you, how many grams of raisins for each gram of peanuts? This time the peanuts has to go on the bottom. So if I flip this, I could do the reciprocal. It's 7 grams of raisins for each gram of peanuts. Okay, So I just flipped it upside down there. Number 7. 3 websites have different pricing for downloading songs. It says company A charges $10.80, and this is number 7, for 12 songs. This is company A. Company B charges $9.50 for 10 songs, and company C charges 20 songs cost $17 is how it's worded. So they put the number of songs first, but it doesn't matter. We still put money first. $17 for 20 songs. That's the part where you don't want to get tricked. Still put money first, right? Money on top. So I go 1080 and I divide these two like this. Okay? And I go ahead and do the division. Now just for the sake of time, I'm going to cheat and use a calculator. I don't want you to do that though. You got to practice because you can't use a calculator on the test. Okay, so this is 90 cents, right? I divide this. I go in and out. I put my decimal up and I say how many times I can. So how many times is 10 going to 95? 9 times, okay? But again, for the sake of time, for these problems, I'm just going to do the shortcut. And actually, I didn't really need to use calculators, right? If I'm dividing by 10, I just move the decimal one time that way. That's a shortcut to dividing by 10. I can see it's 95 cents. I didn't need to use a calculator. Over here, I'd go in and out. I put a decimal here, add placeholders, and start dividing. But just because we're making a video here, it's 0.85 or 85 cents. So this 0.9 is 90 cents, right? So A is 90 cents, B is 95 cents, and C is 85 cents. The question was, which is the best buy? So who has the lowest unit rate? Company C does. Next problem, we have to prime factorize 210. So problem number 8, 210. If I see a 0, I can divide out a 10 right away, right? 21 times 10 is 210. And 10 is always 2 times 5, and 21 is 3 times 7. I'm done. Prime factorization is 2357. Number 9. Simplify. 2 times 2 times 5 over 2 times 7 times 2 times over 2 times 2 times 5. Well, I'm going to cross out my 1's. My answer, 1/7, right? These are 1's, right? So I don't put a 0 up there. There's a 1 still up there. Remember, there's a 1 on the bottom. You can get rid of it. 1 on top, you cannot. 10, I'm going to simplify. 6 divided by 2/5. And I know to say divided by here instead of here because this line was a little bit bigger. So that's where my division symbol goes. I make it a fraction, multiply by reciprocal. Don't forget to flip this upside down and make this times. That's 2 things you're doing. So from there I can use my factor trees, cross out my 1's, and I know my answer will already be reduced because I did that. I crossed out these 2. I got 15 over 1. Remember, if the 1's on top, you can't get rid of it, but if it's on the bottom, you can. So number 10, the answer is 15. Should be checking our answers as we go, right? Alright, let's save some paper, go up here and do number 11. Number 11 says simplify. 2 over 7 divided by 6. The bigger line's down here, so this time it looks like this. 2 over 7 division 6. 2 over 7, never change that front number. Multiply by reciprocal. Factor trees, those are prime. 6 is composite, I break it down. Cross out my 1's and I get 1/7 there. Check my answer, make sure I didn't make a mistake. Yep, I did make a mistake. Good thing I checked. What did I do wrong? I forgot to multiply 7 times 3. So that should be 21. So you see the importance of checking your answer before you go on. You don't catch those mistakes when you're in a hurry. Alright, number 12. Number 12. Simplify. 3/8 divided by 3/4. 3/8 times the reciprocal, which is 4/3. Cross out my 1's. I can do my factor trees now. 8 is 2, 2, 2. Cross out my 1's. My answer is 1/2. Okay? If the way I wrote it here confused you, let me just do it down here. 8 is 2, 2, 2. 4 is 2, 2. Okay? Just cross out my 1's. Cross that out, and I get 1/2 either way I do it. Number 13. Larry can run 2/3 miles. In means over, or in 1/2 hour. find his unit rate. So if they don't tell us otherwise, remember, time's always on the bottom, right? So I go 2/3. This means division, 1/2. How do I divide by fraction? I multiply by reciprocal. There's no ones to cross out, so I get 4 1/3. Now, since this is a word problem, this is one of those situations where I'm probably going to have you convert. So let me check the answers. Yep, I have you convert. It's already simplified, but if you don't see that answer, then you have to divide in and out. Right? 1 times 3 is 3. Take your remainder, put it up top. Take your divisor, put it on the bottom. So 1 1/3 miles. But miles per hour, or each or every hour. Okay? That's the right there. Okay, 14. 14 says a snail crawled 3.5 miles in 7 hours. That means over 7 hours. Time on bottom, right? What is his average speed? Okay, so find average speed. I'm just finding unit rate. In other words, I'm just dividing. I go 3.5 division 7. Make everything a fraction. Remember, we start at the bottom, we multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. Keep the same bottom number. Keep the same denominator. Divided by 7. Make 7 a fraction by putting it over 1. 7 over 1 is 7. 7 over 2 divided by 7 is the same as 7 over 2 times 1/7. Multiply by reciprocal. Cross out my 1s, and my answer is 1/2. But 1/2 what? Miles every hour. Miles per hour. MPH if you want. Check our answer. Yep, 1/2 miles per hour. Okay. Well, moving on to number 15 now. Okay, number 15. All right. 15 says Samantha paid $12 for a total of 1.5 yards of fabric. It's 1 1/5 yards of fabric. Okay, what is the unit price? So we go 12 divided by 1 1/5. 12, make this into a fraction, right? 5 times 1 plus 1 is 6, so divided by 6/5. Now we make it into a fraction and make this into a fraction too, at which time we can do our factor trees. Cross out our 1s and get our answer. It's $10 per what? Well, we look at the picture or the problem and it says per yards of fabric, so it's $10 per yard. Check our answer in the back. Yep, $10 per yard. We're good. Number 16. 16 says the water pump moves water at the same, so that means that all of these are going to be the same ratio, so you can pick any ones you want. If you like a lot of fractions or just one fraction, whatever you pick is great. Now, if you had these two where there were no fractions, of course I would pick that one. But I can deal with fractions. I know how to do that, right, to divide fractions. So I'm going to find the unit rate, so I'll just take the first one. It says 4/5 minutes per 20 gallons. Okay. But remember, we put time on bottom, so that's 20 over 4/5, which is 20 divided by 4/5. And now we know how to deal with that. We go 20 over 1 times the reciprocal of 4/5, which is 5 over 4, or 5/4. Do my factor trees. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 is prime. 2 times 2 is 4. Cross out my 1s, and I get 25. But I make sense of the problem. 25 what? 25, remember I put money on top, so it's $25 per minute. Check my answer. 16, whoops. It was gallons per minute. I don't know where I put dollars, so 25 gallons per minute. Sorry about that. Number 17. Alright, 17 says Deanne paid $9 for, that means over, 1 4/5 yards of fabric. This is Deanne. Got to keep track of who's doing what. Jesse paid $7. Well, it's worded like this: 4 2/3 yard for $7. But we always put money on top, right? And I got 4 2/3. Unless they tell us specifically otherwise, money's always on top. Deborah is, it says 5/8 yard for $5, but I put money on top. And then 5/8 yard. Okay, so we have to see which of these ladies have the same unit price. In other words, I got to do what I've been doing this whole time, right? Just divide money divided by whatever, and then see which one gives me the same number. So, which of these, like, there might be two, these two, it might be all three, might be none. So we got to check. So I go 9 divided by, make this into a fraction, right? So I got 9/5. Let's do the same thing over here. 7 over 4 2/3 means 7 divided by is divided by, right? Fractions are division problems. And I convert this. I multiply. 3 times 4 is 12. And then add this. 12 plus 2 is 14. And keep the same bottom number. Okay? One more time. Let's do the same thing over here. 5 divided by, well, it's already a fraction, so I don't need to convert it. But let's make these all fractions too by putting them over 1. So now I made them all fractions. So now I multiply it by reciprocal, right? Multiply, flip it upside down. Over here, don't change the first number. Multiply, flip this one upside down. This one here. Don't change that first number. Multiply, flip this upside down. Okay? Now we can do factor trees. 9 is 3 times 3. 5 is prime. Cross out my 1s. And if you see they're both 9s, you can hit them right away. So this is $5 per yard. Remember, because we put money on top, and this is yard. So $5 per yard. The one on the bottom is a unit, the per 1. Over here, I got 7 over 1 times 3 over 2 times 7, right? 14 is 2 times 7. Cross out my 1s. I get 3 halves. 3 halves, I can convert that to 1 1/2 if I need to, but I may not need to. So let me save some work and just wait and see if it's going to be the same as any of these. I might not even need to divide in and out. Over here, I cross cancel. I got $8 per yard. See, I didn't need to divide that. I know that none of them are the same. So my answer for this one is none of the ladies had paid the same unit rate. Okay. Number 18 says, select a statement that is most true for the table. Okay, so we have a table right here, and then we have some ratios there of students to teachers. Okay, so let's compare the ratios, students to teachers. I'll go ahead and put the teachers on top because we could do either one. We could put students on top or teachers on top. Whoops, sorry. But later on, we get into 8th grade, we need to know that we're always going to put this bottom one on top. Y is on top, and that has to do with slope. We'll talk about that later. But for now, just since it doesn't matter if I put students or teachers on top, let's just get used to putting these on the top of our fraction. Okay, so put the bottom ones on top. Alright, so we're going to find the ratio. In other words, we're finding the ratio of teachers to students. So teacher to student ratio. Okay, so for the first one, teachers is 3, students is 108. I'm getting that from the table. If you look at your table right now, if you're a little confused. The next one, we have 5 teachers for 180 students. Next one, they have a classroom with 2 teachers, and it looks like none of the kids came to school that day, so 0 students. And the next one, we have 8 teachers to 288 students. So those are our ratios of teacher to students. So we're going to evaluate those, in other words, divide those, so that we can answer. We can tell whether it's proportional or not, and we can say why or why not. So let's go ahead and divide those. If I divide those in and out, okay, I go in, out, okay. Now another option is just to convert, to reduce all the fractions and see if you get the same thing. Okay. All right. So this is how we do this. We have to divide all of these in and out. However, there's a shortcut here. There's a shortcut right here. Okay. If there are 0 students, there has to be 0 teachers, or vice versa. If there are 0 teachers, there should be 0 students. That is the rule for proportional. If you have any zeros at all, they both have to be 0. If you don't have any zeros, then you got to divide all these like I just said. But if you see any zeros at all, they have to both be 0. Now, if they're both zeros, you keep doing what we're doing. You keep dividing. However, if you see one's a 0 and one is not, you can stop. This cannot be proportional. Proportional means these are all the same when I divide them, and if they're zeros, they're both zeros. That's the rule. Same ratio, and if you see any zeros, they're both zeros. Since I see a 0 and they're not both zeros, I can stop and say this is not proportional. So let's look at my answer choices here. It says it says the table is proportional. Just stop right there. Forget that. That's not proportional because I don't have 0, 0, right? So C says also the table is proportional. Forget that one too. So it's got to be B or D. B says the table is it's got to be, yeah, B or D. B says the table is not proportional because every feet per minute ratio is equivalent. That's not true. So it's got to be D, but check it. The table is not proportional because not every feet per minute ratio is equivalent. Oops. I was looking at 19, excuse me. 18. D says the table is proportional. Nope. C, the table is not proportional because there are 2 teachers for 0 students. That's right. Our answer right there. Okay, so 18, the answer is C. All right, 19, the one I was looking at too early there. 19. Okay. Select this. Oh, it's the same, basically the same directions, right? So we got to test all these. This time we have for 19. Okay. We have 72 over 6 on the table. But it's feet and minutes this time instead of teachers and students, right? We have 108 over 9, 96 over 8, and 0 over 0. Now, if you got 0, 0, okay, it could be proportional. So we do have to divide these. The last one we didn't. We could have stopped that real quick and said, nope, it's not proportional. But we have to pick the right reason why. So this one, let's check to see if they're proportional. So let's divide. Now, we also want to put the bottom on top just for the slope later on, okay? But in this case, you know what? It might be easier to divide, since these are smaller, it might be easier just to divide the other way. Okay, so we can still get equivalent ratios to see if it's proportional by dividing this by this. So to try to make it easier for you, let's go and do that this time. Okay, so we'll go 72 in, 6 out. But remember, you have to do the same one in and out each time. Okay, so in other words, I can't take this one and put the bottom in this time. So this, let's see, 6 times 9 is 72. Okay. Nope, I'm wrong. What am I talking about? What was I thinking? All right, so this 6 times 1 is 6. Okay, math teacher. Drop this down. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, so I got a 12 there. Over here, 9 goes into 10 one time. And then, ooh, I got another ratio of 12. And over here, if I get the same thing again, which I did, I know this is proportional. Okay, so let's look at our reasons. 19A, slow down. I'm trying to make these videos short for you guys and I end up making mistakes because I'm rushing. So 19A says the table is proportional because every feet per minute ratio is equivalent. Feet per minute is equivalent. That's true. And for 0 feet, you have 0. In other words, you got 0, 0. That's it. Now, look at the other one, though. The table is proportional. That's true because every feet per minute ratio, that means if you put 6 over 72, is equivalent to every minute per feet. That means that would equal 72 over 6. That's not true, so don't pick that one. So my point is, make sure you read the reason why, because one of them will say, yes, it's proportional, but they'll give you the wrong reason. Last problem, number 20. Okay. All right. Woohoo! Again, we got to select the statement that's true, and we have another lovely table, which is fun stuff. Let's go ahead and draw this beautiful thing here. We got minutes, and we got feet, and you got 1/5 minutes per 1/10 feet, and then you got 2/5 minutes for 1/5 feet, and you guys don't have to write this down because it's already on there for you. I'm just doing this for the sake of the video, and for 0 minutes you got 0 feet. So it might be proportional, right? It could be proportional because we have 0, 0, so let's test. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's put the bottom first, divided by the top. Okay, if it's easier, you can switch it, but otherwise, do this one first, divided by this one. Okay, over here, 1/5 divided by 2/5. Over here, remember, I'm putting feet first. Feet divided by minutes. That's the same as over, right? Okay, so we got to see, I got 1/10 times the reciprocal of 5. Over here, 1/5 times the reciprocal of 2/5. And 3/5 times the reciprocal of 3/10. Okay, and now as I start to reduce these, over here I got 2 times 5 is 10, and I have a ratio of 1/2. Over here, 1/5. Oh, this is ready to cancel out. Excellent, 1/2. Woohoo, looks pretty good. Over here, 3/5 times 10 is 2 times 5. Cross out my 1s, and I get 2 over 1. Close enough, right? Nope, that's wrong. This is not proportional because this ratio wasn't the same as these. So we need to find the answer that says that. So A says is proportional. Forget A. Let me get in the right spot here. Okay. C says is proportional. Forget C. B says the table is not proportional because every feet per minute ratio is equivalent. That's not true. Try D. The table is not proportional because not every feet per minute ratio is equivalent. Answer has to be D. All right. Hope that's helpful.